Retrieving data from your TinyWebDB site is a two-step process. First, I'll use an analogy to explain the process, and then I'll try and link it back to the App Inventor for you. I have built an app called TinyWebDBGetter that you can use to test your understanding of the retrieval of information from your personal TinyWebDB site. This is yours to download, upload, and use, and you can find it on the course webpage. Also, I assume that you have previously set up your personal TinyWebDB site, and if you've not done that, see the previous video on how to. In the past, companies used pneumatic tubes to pass information back and forth between an operations center and maybe the manager's office. So first, the sender, this hapless intern, will put a request in the tube. So let's say it's, "Can I go to lunch?" So the request is sent whizzing off to the manager's office, and the intern can go back to work while he's waiting for a response. Once the request reaches the manager's office, the manager will take it out and read it, and they've been told by their boss to always respond to this request of "Can I go to lunch?" with the answer, "No, you can't go to lunch." So from there, the manager will write that down, will say, "No, you can't go to lunch," and put it in the paired tube and send it whizzing back to the operation floor. From there, the intern will come back and pick up his response and will read it and be able to get on with his work because he can't go to lunch. So to relate this back to Google App Inventor, our hapless intern is representative of our app. So our app will first make a call of a get value to the TinyWebDB. And we have to tell our app what tag to send off to the TinyWebDB. So we're sending off the tag of phone. And once it reaches the TinyWebDB gets the message phone, and that's a tag. And we've programmed earlier that anytime it receives a tag of phone, it should put the value of the phone number that we've previously put into the TinyWebDB. From there, the TinyWebDB sends back the value to our app through the internet. And our app has this command, which is a when command. So when the app receives the value, it can do something. So the value here is what's coming back from the TinyWebDB. And it can either display it or do something else with it. So that's generally how this works. And the most important part, though, is that after having done the call, the app doesn't have to wait around for the got value to come back. It can go on and work on other processes. So your app won't hang. Otherwise, it would stop for maybe a second or two and just freeze and wait for the command to come back. So we break it up into two commands so that the app can continue on with other work in between the call and the got value. So now let's take a bit closer look at the blocks editor for the TinyWebDBGetter app. So our first block is a when block, and it's when we click this button. So this is a button. And this button here is the send tag to TinyWebDB button. So when we click that button, it'll send a get value command for the tag of whatever we typed into the tag text box. And also, it'll change the status text to now sending. Then, once we get our value back from the TinyWebDB, so if we typed in phone, it would whiz off to the TinyWebDB and would be converted into the phone number and then come whizzing back to our app. And as soon as it comes back to our app, this process will start because it's a got value. So as soon as our app receives the value, this process will start. And what this does is we made a message dialog box, basically this box here, that will pop up as soon as that value returns, and it'll have the value and the tag you used. And also it's going to change the status text back to the default, which is just status with a ellipsis.